Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar that Mark Wilkinson has kindly offered to deliver to us about e-colours. He's an e-colours coach, an author, and a health and safety consultant specialising in behavioural safety. The consultancy is called Hillmont Associates. It's based in the UK, but working worldwide. E-colours sounds an amazing system. It's worked with 1.3 million people across the world have completed the questionnaire. It's used by some big companies, Heathrow Airport, Chevron. So really looking forward to finding out some more about it. So welcome everyone, and I shall hand over to Mark Wilkinson.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alison. Really appreciate that. And I really appreciate the invite as well. Thank you all very much for being here. If you'd like to use the chat box to communicate with me at any time, if you have any questions or you'd like to know me, like to let me know where you are watching and listening from, please do put that in the chat box. It would be great to connect with you. So yes, as mentioned, we are Hillmont Associates. My name is Mark Wilkinson. We are leadership, team building, behavioural safety specialists. We've been working in this field for many years of realising potential and improving humanity and human beings to be safer, happier, and more productive and more effective. So who we are, my wife is also on this call. She's also an e-colours coach. I'm a chartered member of IIRSM and a fellow of the Institute of Leadership. I'm a director of Hillmont Associates, the e-colours coach. I'm also a success coach, and I've written a best-selling book called Life Remixed about my journey. It's not always been straightforward. However, I'd also like to mention my good lady wife, Emma. She's a corporate event director and an e-colours coach, and she runs her own company called Bamboo Events as well. Now, we need to understand the e-colours concept. We have different parts of our personality, all of us, and I will explain this as we go through this hour. The yellow part of our personality is where we socialise and where we engage. And the red part of our personality is about action and taking action. And we all have different percentages of these four colours within us. The blues, top colour blues, like to relate and support. And the green personality styles like to think and plan. From that perspective, the left-hand side, red greens and green reds would be more task orientated, and yellow blues and blue yellows will be more people orientated. Red greens and green reds more independent, yellow blues and blue yellows more interdependent. From that perspective, yellow reds and red yellows will be faster paced and we'll see the big picture very quickly, whereas green blues and blue greens are more steady paced and they need more information to be able to interact and move forward in a leadership way. But we all have an element of these. We all have a percentage of these things within us. And the e-colours questionnaire is very much about understanding those percentages that we all have from the personality perspective. So to reintroduce myself, I'm Mark. I'm the yellow red. I'm the doing socializer, the doing being the red, the socializer being the yellow. And you can see I'm optimistic, I'm big picture, I'm energetic, and obviously talkative. And I do have potential limiters. We don't call them weaknesses, we call them potential limiters because they can be worked on when the individual chooses to work upon them. I can be disorganized at times, potentially excitable and reactive, certainly when I was younger. And over talkative can also be a potential limiter for a top color yellow. My wife is a green blue, she's the relating thinker. And she has her own strengths and potential limiters, perfectionist and analytical and logical and cautious as a strength or strengths. And potential limiters as self-critical, sometimes picky, slow to decide, and potentially overthinking as well. Now, when you look at those two people, you'll notice the yellow percentages are very, very different. You'll also notice the green percentages are very, very different. The yellow being the socializer, the green being the thinker. So you can see that Emma does the thinking for the both of us. And I do the talking for the both of us. You will also notice there with our percentages, and when you do your questionnaire, if you haven't already done it, when you do your questionnaire and you get your premium report, which I'll give you some instructions on later if you would like to do so, you'll find out your own percentages, your own personalized percentages on your e-colour report. And we tend to look at the top two tendencies as the leading indicators. However, the third and fourth percentages can often be very, very similar also as well. But we can all go into all areas at any different time. So you can see Emma's 43% green thinker. I'm only 9% green thinker. But our red, our doer, and our blue, our empathy, are very, very even. And it is a really interesting piece of work when you start to understand yourself and then understand people around you, work colleagues, clients, etc., which is very, very powerful. Self-awareness and team awareness. But we're going to link this to safety as well, which is the difference between e-colors and all of the other tools that are out there. So we're going to understand ourselves a little bit more during this hour. We're also going to understand our team and the people around us a little bit more. We're going to understand how e-colors and the tools can develop our observation and feedback capabilities, and we can understand the other applications and tools that we've got in order to be effective in what we do. So how we use e-colors, and it can be used anywhere where there's people. But obviously, risk safety management. I'm a health and safety consultant. This is what woke me up to e-colors at the start, because I started to understand my own behaviors and psychological safety. We want to prevent people from getting hurt physically and emotionally, which is very, very important at home, in the workplace, and wherever we are. We also look at team building, improving communication, productivity, empathy to create high performance teams. Leadership coaching individuals one-to-one. Conflict resolution, understanding how others think, and sales coaching as well, to communicate better with everyone that we interact with. Dave asks us a very interesting question in the chat box there. Dave Rustling says, would you agree that this system only identifies what we perceive ourselves to be and not what others would perceive us to be? The two could be completely different. Yeah, I understand your point, Dave. I think it's a very interesting piece. When we get into one-to-one coaching with people, or indeed coaching large companies, we focus a lot on that, because ultimately how we perceive ourselves is very, very important. And then how we communicate and understand with others, also very important. And remembering we can all go into each of these four color areas at any time. As a 9% green, I don't spend a lot of time thinking or going into deep thoughts, whereas Emma would go into that. So again, we understand ourselves and others very, very well. And it's not profiling. It's very much about understanding ourselves and each other. Well, as we go through this, think about how this could benefit yourself, also your family, your friends, your clients, your colleagues, and think how you could even embed this into your own business as a coach, as a consultant, or as an organization. I train trainers and practitioners worldwide. Many people use this very, very effectively. We use it in a very ethical way. I'm going to touch on the ethics in a little while. Our ethics are different to all of the other personality diversity styles that are out there, or tools that are out there. So I am shortening this down into an hour. Normally this would be a good half-day session. So it looks like a lot here, but I'm going to touch on each section. I can't go into massive detail, as I'm sure you'd appreciate. But we're going to understand e-colors. We're going to understand self-awareness, behavioral-based safety, self-management, managing our tendencies, understanding others, application strategies, moving into action, and then we'll have a little debrief and a Q&A at the end. And I would very much appreciate all of your questions into the chat box as well. I'm happy to take any questions as we go through. So if I ask you a question, do you think that different people with different personality styles see and manage risk differently? When we think about this, it becomes a really interesting piece, because ultimately, I believe that each personality style does see risk differently, and we need to understand that and appreciate that in our teams. Okay. Also, psychological safety, it needs to be developed and not demanded. Do you agree? Now, I thought about this, of course, and psychological safety, and I'll explain, a definition of that in a moment. But psychological safety absolutely needs to be developed. You can't just demand people feel psychologically safe in their business. It's like telling someone to stop being anxious. That doesn't work. We need to develop and coach people so that they grow and become safe, of course, but also fantastic team members and a lot more productive as well. So here's a definition of psychological safety from Amy Edmondson at Harvard. She says psychological safety is a belief that no one will be punished or humiliated with ideas, questions, or concerns or mistakes, and that the team is safe for interpersonal risk taking. Very interesting discussion at Kinetic, the Ministry of Defence recently, where we were doing some work with them and continue to do work with them around psychological safety and indeed mistakes. You know, we can make mistakes, of course we can, but we need to not be humiliated or indeed punished. However, there was a discussion about the scale of the mistake, and obviously if the mistake is huge and leads to incredible problems, then ultimately, of course, there is punishment. However, psychological safety on a day-to-day basis is about making sure that everyone feels together in the team. So vulnerability, yeah, absolutely, is not punished. And thank you for Nuala for being here all the way there in South Africa. So when you have psychological safety and when you don't, so when you have it, you'll see mistakes as opportunities to learn. When you don't, you'll see mistakes potentially as threats to yourself or your career. When you have it, you're willing to take a risk and fail, and you might see failure as a learning event rather than ultimate failure. If you don't have it, you might be unwilling to rock the boat and just keep quiet, etc., and not actually interact in a good way. When you have it, you will speak your mind in meetings without fear of retributions, but if you don't, you might well keep your ideas to yourself. When you do have psychological safety, you'll share your struggles openly. When you don't, you might only tout your strengths to try and cover up potential struggles. When you have it, you'll have trust in yourself, your teammates and your supervisors. When you don't, you will have fear potentially ruling the roost. And we need to make sure that we are in a place of psychological safety, so we are prepared to put our neck out and actually get things done and not worry about being chopped off or indeed put into difficult situations. And my book, Life Remixed, is actually my own personal journey from not having psychological safety in life through to having psychological safety in life. And that's why obviously I share that journey. Now, based on personality styles, and like I said earlier, we look at the top two. Largely the top two are our leading tendencies. And if our percentages are certainly above 25%, you'll remember my yellow red. My yellow is 40%, my red is 26%. My blue is 25%, so I do have lots of empathy for people as well. In fact, when I started out on eColours 10 years ago, I started as a yellow-blue. I've changed ever so slightly into a yellow-red. But we each have a top two generally. When people have equal percentages, then we can give them more than one report, and they can look at the report and decide which one is the best for them to identify with. But you can see the 12 different colours here, the top colours, top reds, top yellows, top blues, top greens, with second colours. And we have reports and personalised reports for every single person who does the questionnaire. And I think it's very, very interesting when you start to study it. The big question is, ask us how you can get hurt based on your personality style. I'm going to show you a video in a second of how that actually came about. But it's the best question that's been asked in health and safety. For me, we must have all policies and procedures, and we must make sure they're all there. But very often in investigations, we can find ourselves in a situation where we're trying to find out, well, why didn't the team follow the procedure? We need to understand that and the personalities within the team so that we can actually find out how different people can get hurt. It's a very powerful question to ask. Before we go any further, how eColours is different. It is simple, it's memorable. Colour association is easier for the mind. And of course, there are other products out there that do something quite similar, but the differences are simple, applicable, ethical. It's an indicator, not a definition or a profile. It's an indicator. Your eColours can change at different points throughout the day, and indeed, as you grow as an individual. My understanding of coaching and training is it gets us there quicker, which is ultimately where we need to be to keep a safe environment. We do have a huge data lake of information. We have 1.3 million people that have answered our questionnaire. These are some of the questions that have been asked. How can I get hurt? What makes it difficult for me to stop the job from a safety perspective, of course? What do I need and what do others need to be in a place of psychological safety based on personality? Teamwork questions, procedure questions, how personality trends are shown, when I could press pause, when I could press play. Other questions that have been asked, how to recognize me when working with me. If you want me to listen, how to delegate, how I can make errors, communication styles, delegation styles, listening styles, and so much more. And all of these questions have been asked to the 1.3 million people that do the questionnaire throughout different times for us to bring this data lake of information together and then stimulate positive conversations in behavioural safety, team building, etc., courses, and we do these regularly across the world. It is stress awareness this month in the UK, and we have this, how I tend to react to stress. We've put the top 2 answers there for each top colour. So as a yellow myself, I may get more emotional, or I might tend to wear my heart on my sleeve. So you might see me get stressed in that respect. With blues, they may seem worried and withdraw, and they need their problem to be taken seriously. With greens, they may become frustrated and they think that stress very often is an integral part of life. And reds may become angry and try to deal with it themselves. But we all have these indicators from our percentages. When you find out your percentages, you can then start to identify with this information. And I can certainly identify with yellow, red and yellow, blue. I don't really identify with the green because my green is only 9%, as I showed you earlier. Because if you can predict it, you can prevent it. How you and others can get hurt, what makes it difficult to have those challenging safety conversations. And that is a big one in safety. When I look around and I get out on site and I'm interacting with people, some people will really try and avoid those safety conversations. They just don't want to have them for various reasons. And we can understand this predictably around personality. What makes it difficult to follow procedures is a fascinating one as well. And then pause and play personality opportunities, which I'll explain in a moment. So like I said, 1.3 million people have done the questionnaire. We call this the 8 essentials of high-performing teams. Self and team awareness is number 1, and that's a little bit of what we're going to cover today. But then you can see we go the whole way around that leadership cycle in order to get the best out of ourselves and others. Because each individual possesses a unique degree of awareness, which to some extent allows us to anticipate their thought processes and their interactions. We can provide insights into potential vulnerabilities that may lead to harm, as well as highlight the challenges inherent in engaging different personality styles in discussions about safety. Every company that have used this, safety and productivity has improved because of teamwork and communication improvements. When I introduced this to Heathrow Airport in the last couple of years, they all do insights. So they've done insights as a leadership tool. When I showed them e-colours, this is what the head of health and safety said, Sharon Smith. She said, it's simple and engaging to help you understand how you can get hurt. It teaches you self-awareness and so much more about yourself. You can understand your team, any potential blind spots, and how you can be mindful of your own actions. And from our perspective, e-colours is accessible to all in a way that some of the other leadership tools are not. So let's talk a little bit about history and the science. E-colours is a 4-quadrant personality model in line with many others in the marketplace, of course, which all have value. And subtle differences. And they stem from the same background and philosophy. And many of you will know some of these already. From my perspective, e-colours is powerful because it has this incredible backstory. It started in the high-risk oil and gas business to improve safety levels and ultimately reduce fatalities. 1.3 million people, as I said, have completed the questionnaire. It's been used in organisations, sports, healthcare, education. And one of the differences is children as young as 7 can do their e-colours and have done their e-colours worldwide. And we are currently talking to 2 schools here in the UK to embed e-colours into their PSHE curriculum. It is for everyone. E-colours is for everyone, not just for the leadership team. It's for everyone to stay safe, be more productive, and ultimately realise their potential. And that is the great feeling for me as a yellow. I love to jump in and help. And I want others to realise their potential in a big way in their lives. I'm going to show you this couple of minutes of this short video. This is myself and Lewis Senior, the CEO, talking about the idea behind e-colours and how he started to attach safety to personality. It's not for the faint-hearted, this video. There's a couple of moments in here that are a little bit distressing, especially if we work in the health and safety industry. However, please, let's just watch it together for a minute or two. What gave you the idea for the personality perspective? How did that come about?
We had been working on a rig in Nigeria that was working for a large major oil company. They'd had a fatality a previous year. The next year, unfortunately, somebody got hurt one evening, had his fingers chopped off. They decided to fly him into town to get looked after. And unfortunately, the helicopter on the way into town crashed. So the pilot died, co-pilot died, the person who got hurt died, and the person who was sent in to look after him died. And the operator shut the rig down and said, you're not going back to work until you can prove you can work incident-free. As you can imagine, under those circumstances, it's very, very trying. So I was sent over there to try and help out. I thought the oil company did a great job in actually shutting the operation down and refused to go back to work until we were able to prove we could work safely throughout the rest of the contract. And sitting with the crew one night, I'd already been looking at what were we missing. And the conversation came around. I literally got with the crew and asked them, so, well, what are your strengths? You know, what we used to call improvement opportunities? And actually, the other question I was asking is what motivates you? Because why would somebody put themselves in a situation where they could get hurt? And a gentleman called Kevin Bartow, he said, well, why don't you ask us the obvious question? And I said, what's that? He said, why don't you ask us how we can get hurt? And he said, well, you know me, Lewis, I'm a yellow blue. I can get hurt jumping in to help. And the minute he said that, he just started sending alarm bells off in my head, because we had somebody killed a couple of years earlier on another rig in the North Sea. Obviously, as it turned out, he was predominantly yellow blue, somebody else jumping in to help. And from there, that was enough for me. I said to Transocean, look, I want to start bringing this to a whole other level. And they said, well, we're not ready for it, but what we think you should do is start your own company, and we'll support you for the first 3 years and get you going. And they absolutely did. And here we are 20 years later to tell the tale.
And certainly, it's been hugely effective. And we, of course, can back that up with statistics about how it's improved safety throughout every organisation that it's been used in as a safety tool. Linking personality to safety is the difference between e-colours and other tools. So, of course, it's a registered method to a company called Equilibria, who I am partnered with. It's simple, accessible, applicable, and inclusive. And the system is intended to raise self-awareness, illustrating behaviours within predictable personality tendencies. And personality can be predictable at times, depending on our top two and our percentages. But ultimately, we want to become more intentional with ourselves and our skills. So let's understand e-colours. Like I said, it's a simple system, memorable and applicable. We differentiate between personality and character. We are never defining a human being based on some questions and two top colours. We're looking for indicators about how we can all improve our skills. I'm doing the same just as everybody else. It is aligned with emotional intelligence, which of course we can study and is becoming even more important these days. Certainly around the mental health agenda, which I support fully, of course, to improve ourselves and everyone else. We're not profiling, it's tendency management and intentionality, and we do have ethics around this as well. These are the ethics. I'm going to draw your attention to the right-hand side, which is what the e-colours and associated tools are not, okay? They are not a profiling system designed to assist in job, team, or role processes. So we don't work with HR companies so that people can employ someone based on their personality style, because if you're going to choose someone based on personality style, then you can do all kinds of negative things with that. However, what we do say is once the person has been employed, ask them to do their personality indicator, and then we can coach them and develop them so that they become a really integral part of the team, which is very, very important. It's not a way to box or discriminate. Absolutely not. If you're going to discriminate on personality, then you can discriminate on anything. And of course, that is not correct and not ethical. And we're not looking to limit potential. In fact, exactly the opposite. We're looking to realise potential. It's not a finite description of who we are and how we act, because you've got all of those percentages. And it's not an excuse for poor behaviour or having a fixed mindset. Like I said, we look at personality as the tip of the iceberg, but it is where we react from. And it can be the raw version of ourselves. Really, what we want to do is we want to bypass our personality at times and get to our character, which is where our learned behaviour comes from and where we respond rather than react. And responding rather than reacting is very, very key to personality and managing our tendencies. This person's e-colours here, when we think about the Wells analogy, this person would be green, yellow. It's easier for them to get into their green, their thinking, and their yellow, their speaking, their engagement. It's a lot easier for them to get there than it is to get to the blue perspective, the empathy that they would have for others. When we look at that, that's the calm waters, a nice calm day. Everything's nice and easy. There's no stress, no concerns. But sometimes we all know in life that the waters can get choppy. Things can get difficult. There can be challenges. We can have stress in our lives or have those difficult conversations to face, etc. In those instances, this person would go very, very quickly to their top color green because it's easier for them to get there, and it'd be a lot harder for them to get to their empathy if they don't realize it and they're not self-aware or indeed aware of their team. Ultimately, if we have a personality-based reaction without awareness, we'll get unintentional consequences. If we have a character-based response and we have awareness, we get intentional results, and that is key. Jason Anker, a good friend of mine, coaching client, public speaker, fell off a ladder when he was 24 years of age and never walked again, 30 years ago now. Jason said, if I'd have known about my E-colours as a yellow over blue before that fateful day and that accident, it may never have happened. And I'll explain to you why. As a yellow blue, the answers that have been given, some of the answers that have been given are how I could get hurt. We'll be jumping in to help, being distracted, trying to please others by hurrying, or when having to do too many tasks at once. And if you know Jason's story, these things are very, very relevant to where he ended up that day and then unable to walk. Now, we all have strengths, so we need to understand the strengths of each of these personality top colours. Remember, we can I identify with yellow, red and blue in different ways. And these are only the top three. We have many, many other answers as well. As a yellow, optimistic, enthusiastic and people orientated. Hopefully you can feel that from me. As a red, top colour reds will be practical, strong-willed, decisive. Top colour greens will be logical, accurate and persistent. And top colour blues will automatically go into supportive, calm and loyal. And you will have top colours and second colours and indeed third colours potentially. And I have met people that are 25% of everything. And those people are also absolutely fascinating, as every human being is. We have our strengths. We also have our potential limiters. Our potential limiters can be emotional, disorganised, overly talkative in the yellow team. In the blues, might be stubborn or unsure or reluctant to speak up at times. The greens might end up being too serious or picky or indeed judgmental. And reds, top colour reds, might be pushy, impatient and harsh. And we might not mean to be these things, but they are potential limiters and they can be managed. The way we manage them is with our wristbands, our pause and play. So I have a wristband on here. It's a yellow-red wristband, as you can see, if you can see me on the screen. And I play and pause my strengths and my potential limiters to leverage them, the strengths, and manage the potential limiters so that I am a better team player and indeed leading in a good way. Because we all have different ways of leading and we need to understand that. To build a strong team, you must see someone else's strengths as a complement to your potential limiters and not a threat to your position or authority. And that's a wonderful quote. Very interesting to appreciate your strengths and your potential limiters and the other people around you. It's really a fascinating piece to get to that level. Imagine your team that gets to that level. It's fantastic. Because what we're looking to do is, of course, embrace and leverage these personality diversity indicators for optimum results. If we can get past doubt and resistance, which many people have from time to time, if we can get past doubt and resistance, we can get ourselves into understanding, past tolerance and all the way to appreciation. It becomes a very, very powerful piece. I appreciate Emma's green blue and she appreciates my yellow red. And actually together we're a fantastic team. Whereas in the past, there could have been potential conflict between a yellow red and a green blue, as an example. So let's talk about behavioural based safety. This is Marie from Kinetic, who is the Ministry of Defence here in the UK, main contractor. She says, fantastic sessions. We've been working with them now for well over 12 months. She says, I highly recommend E-Colours if you want to link your tendencies with safety. It's a real eye-opener. And we are taking the Kinetic team, not just through safety, right through the team building piece as well. And they're such a receptive team, and we're going to train practitioners within Kinetic so that they can run this information themselves. This is not the Mark show. This is very much about you using this information to benefit your company culture, but also your people as well. When we're looking to improve all areas. Now, What do you see first? Some people will only see the equipment. I've got a green-red leader, ops director at Heathrow, and he's green-red, and he's looking at his equipment. He's looking at what's being used. He's not necessarily looking at the people. Whereas I, certainly as a top colour yellow and a yellow-blue previously, I'm looking at the person. Some people looking at the equipment, task-orientated. Some people looking at the people, people-orientated. We start to understand this and how important it is to have a team. All of a sudden, we can appreciate one another. How could I get hurt? This is the top answer. The top answer that was given. Top colour reds might rush or take a perceived calculated risk. Top colour greens might not have enough information or time to process something, and they could get hurt in that way. Remember, physically and emotionally. Top colour blues, if they're being rushed or relying on other people, and top colour yellows by just jumping in to help without thinking. My first e-colours report as a yellow-blue said my skills jumping in to help and wanting to get things done can actually lead me to getting hurt or killed. And actually, that was a real eye-opener for me. And it was for me to pause jumping in to help others, and only nowadays working with people that need my help and want my help rather than just jumping in without thinking about it. It's very, very important to understand your personality style and the way that you see the world. There's a lot of different ways that people see the world from a personality perspective. And having done this work across the globe, it is culturally, of course, in different parts of the world, there'll be different perspectives, but also human beings are human beings. You can see here, this is the top answer that's given by the 12 personality styles. If you know yours, have a look at it. But certainly my yellow-blue was jumping in to help to try and please people. And now my yellow-red is just jumping in to help. I'm not necessarily trying to please people, but I could still jump in to help without thinking. But as you can see here, lots of different people, lots of different answers to the question of how could I get hurt? And this is an entire half day on its own when you get into it to stimulate these conversations. I've had some amazing testimonials from every single person who's ever done this because it's so powerful. A few more top answers. Reds could be impatient or too focused on the task. Yellows being distracted or trying to fix someone. Greens, if they're not included in the planning or they don't have some level of control. And blues, relying on others, being disregarded, or indeed if someone shouts at a top colour blue, they might take that into their feelings quite quickly. We can make errors as well. Of course we can. Reds, wanting to get too many tasks done or being impatient or putting self-imposed time pressures. Greens, desiring for perfection or getting frustrated when people don't want to follow their plan. Yellows, getting distracted and not paying attention or jumping in to help. And blues, not saying no to people and then getting overwhelmed or taking on more than can be handled. And again, there's many, many more answers here, and we have this huge data lake of information. Next question, what makes it difficult for me to have a challenging safety conversation? As a yellow-blue in the past, for me, I didn't want to hurt others' feelings, but I also perceived it as conflict and I might tend to avoid it. Nowadays, as a yellow-red, I don't want to interrupt the rhythm of the task, but I will have that safety conversation. Absolutely. I've been in health and safety for the last 10 years, and this information helped me grow as a person and become a better leader, a better consultant. Greens, lack of information or not knowing a better way. All of these things can come up. And again, that's the top answer. We have lots and lots of more information around these things. Here is the top answer of what makes it difficult to stop the job from each of the top 12 e-colour personality styles. And you can see blue-reds, it may lead to confrontation. Green-reds, not having enough information. Blue-greens, I don't like to speak up in front of large groups. You know, these are predictable personality indicators that once we understand them, we can get the best out of our teams, using that psychological safety piece as well, which is very, very important as we grow. Next question, what makes it difficult to follow procedures? As a yellow, I prefer verbal instructions. If you give me some huge document, I'm really going to struggle with it. But if you sit down and talk me through it for 10 or 15 minutes, I'll be like, okay, I get it. Verbal instructions, yeah, I'm on board. No problem at all. Not everyone's like me. There's lots of other different personality styles out there. E-colours did make it okay to be me, but it also made me realise that actually I needed to understand how to communicate with all these other personality styles as well. Top colour reds might rather do it their way. They might know better. Greens, if the procedure is badly written, they will potentially disengage. And with blues, you need to explain why. Why? What makes this procedure important? Why are we doing it? If we start to communicate with people in the way that they need to be communicated to, we have a safer environment, which is ultimately the key. If we have an event and a personality-based reaction, there'll be some kind of impact to that, and we might end up with regret. I could give you numerous incidents that I've observed. Problems at Heathrow Airport with drivers, Jason Anker's story, all of these things were personality-based reactions that led to regret, ultimately. Whereas if we have an event and we have a character-based response and we play and pause on our personality style to get the very best out of ourselves and others, we'll get favourable consequences. Because once you know yourself and you know others, you understand personality and character and you really embrace that, you respond and you make a conscious choice. Now, we must manage our tendencies as well. We all have a percentage of these things within us. I go straight to words, as you can tell, talking here for an hour. I go straight to words. Top colour reds will go straight into action. Greens will go straight into thinking. And blues will go straight to feelings. We can play and pause these things as we need to make our environment safer, as a company and as individuals. Where we react from is the tip of the iceberg: instinctive behaviours, comfort zones, natural communication styles, as I've shown you briefly. Our character is understanding ourselves, how our mind works, our morals, our values, background, culture, and managing our personality tendencies. And when we can do that, we'll have a safer, better environment. Reds can press pause to slow down and ensure understanding before acting, and press pause to give control to others and let them decide. They can play, listening to others' feedback and input, and play to be more collaborative and involve others in tasks and decisions. Yellows, press pause to focus and ensure understanding before going into action or indeed talking about it. And press pause to give others a chance to voice their opinions rather than us just talking all of the time. Press play to be more organised and less reactive, and press play to plan more and focus on those details. Top colour yellows can miss a detail. Yes, hands up, I can. And I need to focus on that many, many times. Blues, don't dwell on things beyond your control. And press pause to be open to changes in decisions and actions. Press play to speak up and contribute views and feedback, and press play to actively ask for clarification if you're unsure. Greens, press pause on that over-analysing and analytical side, and press pause on being overly critical and indeed self-critical. Press play to try some new things and be more open to others, and press play to consider people's emotions, of course, in order to make those decisions. Pete is a red-green, owner of a company called JP Engineering. He said to me here, I need to understand myself first. And you've opened a whole new world for me. He's very practical. Everything has to be matter of fact as a red-green. But this whole new world has led to him being hugely successful with the company set up in recent times. So let's look at understanding others. Reds will be more faster paced and need to know what. What are we doing? Yellows, also faster paced, but need to know who. Want to engage. Reds might want to tell. Blues need to know why. They're more steady paced and they like to relate. And greens will be more steady paced as well and need to know how, and they like to explain things. Okay, but if we understand this and who we're interacting with, all of a sudden we start to get an overview of individuals and a better environment, and indeed people improving themselves as they go. There are easy filters to hear this stuff. Yeah, reds might speed listen and might ignore you if they're in action and do mode. Okay, they don't mean to, but that's what they'll be doing if they're not self-aware. They haven't used that pause button. Yellows might interrupt you, might selectively listen. If I do that, I apologise. Blues might withdraw and listen with empathy. And greens will ask a lot of questions and actively listen. But again, these are filters, and we train people in this communication piece. It's very, very important. More easy verbal clues. Figure it out, make it happen from the reds. The yellows, I love that. Awesome, epic, all that stuff, I believe. Blues, I feel, I agree, or potentially no response. A blue might go quiet at times. And a green, I think, well, technically, that's not exactly accurate. Again, these clues are there. And we can all go into all of these percentages at any time depending on what's going on around us. But generally, I will lead with that 40% yellow, understanding that about myself. Another coaching client of mine, a yellow red, Lloyd, he says, through e-colours, I've learned how to deal with conflict in the workplace, and more importantly, getting the best out of people that are wired entirely differently from myself. And he runs a huge festival in South Africa to 25,000 people. Very, very important for him to deal with people in a positive way. So if we move into action, remember, we all need information in different ways, okay? And if you're trying to work in sales, and we do sales coaching, understand who you're communicating with in order that they buy into what you're doing. By the way, in safety, we're selling safety, aren't we? We're making sure that people read our risk assessments and our method statements. They engage with what we're doing. They understand the what, the why, the how, and the who. You know, that's what we're doing. Those are the information filters. So it's very important to understand that. Certainly here with the premium reports, we have all kinds of information in these premium reports. They are 33-page documents and one of the most important self-development tools that I've ever seen. And I have worked with Bob Proctor from The Secret, a fantastic self-development guru who passed away recently. He said you need to know your strengths and your weaknesses. And then I discovered e-colours and went, well, here we go. Strengths and potential limiters. So do's and don'ts when communicating with different people. Working, collaborating, praising, coaching, when correcting or suggesting change, reaching higher standards when delegating. All of these things are in that premium report, by the way. And it's a fantastic piece of work for you to study about yourself and then about everyone else around you, your team, your family. We have these intentional communication guides that we give to people that attend all of our sessions, and people keep them on their desk so they can literally go, oh yeah, here comes Mark and he's a yellow, here comes Emma and she's a green. Okay, so I need to make sure that I cover this off for Emma, so she needs that amount of information as an example. These are fantastic tools and all part of us wanting to help and wanting to communicate with everybody. We give out these pocketbooks, the wristbands, and indeed those communication guides, as well as the premium reports. We had this testimonial from Descartes, the head of marketing there. He said it's the best 3 hours I've ever invested in any workshop, which was really, really powerful for us. So we were really grateful for that from him. I would also just like to show you this short 45-second video. This is from the vice chairman of Chevron, whose name is Mark Nelson, and he sent this to us shortly.
Well, to Lewis Sr. and the entire Equilibria team, I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for not only 20 years, but for making people better. I know you made me better. I know you made many of the people that you worked with at Chevron better. And that's really what you're all about. And that's why I appreciate you so much. As a red over green, I always wanted to think about the actions that you made us take in different parts of the Chevron portfolio. But most importantly, I appreciate you helping each of us know more about ourselves. All the best, and thank you for staying intentional.
So when the vice chairman of one of the world's largest energy companies sends you that kind of testimonial, it has to be shared. We're most grateful, of course, for the work that Lewis Senior and the rest of the team have done with Chevron and continue to do. We are working with many, many different large companies worldwide who use this information in the ethical and positive way that we train and indeed share with the world. So practical applications, of course, personal development and understanding your pause and play, your teamwork, your communication. The common language of e-colours now can actually be used in companies where people understand if they're in these different percentages in these different areas. Leadership is massive. I am a fellow, as I said, of the Institute of Leadership. Very, very important. And this is one of the best leadership tools I've ever seen in order to engage others. And indeed, the ethics there are point number 7. Always be respectful. No e-colour combination is better than any other. Very, very, very important that we all understand that. It's not an excuse for any poor behaviour. It's actually about the exact opposite and improving ourselves. So self and team awareness is what we do in step 1. And then, of course, as I mentioned at the start, the effective teamwork and leadership, all from a personality perspective across these 8 steps. And they're so effective. They are so effective. The testimonials we've got from leading companies is absolutely phenomenal. You might have these personal examples, the wristbands. We've even done the dogs e-colours. Frankie, the French bulldog, he's hasn't got any green, he doesn't think, but he's definitely yellow, red and blue. But ultimately, you can use these things at any time in order to benefit yourselves and your people around you. All of our families have done this. We all understand how to communicate with each other. So it's time to do a little debrief now. The golden rule of life would be treat people as you would like to be treated, right? Isn't that what we've all been taught since we were children? Treat people as you would like to be treated. Okay, and I understand that. But actually, if we understand e-colours and those 12 different personality styles and the percentages of each individual in our team, the platinum rule must be to treat people as they need to be treated. And if we can treat people as they need to be treated, all of a sudden, it's a complete game changer for safety, for team building, for leadership, for coaching, and anything else that you would like to understand with e-colours and use as a positive benefit. So we do recommend getting a premium report. You can upgrade your report. I've seen a couple of people in the chat box there using basic reports. That's absolutely fine. But you can upgrade. It's about £30, £32, I think. Hillmont Premium is the code to use. It's $40 down to £32. So, but ultimately, children as young as 12 years and below have done their questionnaires. You can get a free report, ultimately complimentary on us. Get a basic report, get a premium report, up to you. But the premium report, I think, is very, very valuable. So use that code Hillmont Premium. Make a note of that, please. You can also join our 3-hour complimentary session on May the 17th. So Friday, May the 17th, Emma and I are holding a 3-hour complimentary to premium report holders session that morning, which you will see some incredible stuff if you join that. We do breakout rooms where we put people into different rooms to communicate with one another, and it's amazing. You can run a pilot in your team, see the results for yourself, hold that half-day or full-day training session with your own team, or train and embed practitioners, or indeed have a coach available to your business. All of these are ways forward that we would be happy to help with. There's myself and Emma, the yellow, red and the green, blue, and that e-colours awareness session on May the 17th, which you are welcome to join. Once you've got your premium report, just send it to us and we'll register you for that event. You'll get a Zoom link, and I think you'll find it very, very informative. So we needed to understand our own behavioural safety style, our communication style, ourselves. Hopefully I've given you just a little taster of that this morning. Or this afternoon, depending on your time zone. Also, how to communicate and collaborate with your team, understand a little bit more about the associated tools, and then be able to access anything that you would like to access. So we'll do a little Q&A, if we may. I'm ready to pass over to you, Julie or Alison. Is it Alison? Yes.
I'm back here.
Okay,
yeah.
great.
So thank you very much, Mark. Already getting some amazing feedback. I've got one here. Great choice of speaker, super engaging, and a very interesting subject. So
thank you.
That just like crystallizes my thoughts as well. But that's one of the feedbacks that we've had. So I'm hoping we're going to get some more questions come up on the chat here. Just to start with, can you be really clear? How do we get to do the questionnaire if our company is not doing it?
So you can, any individual can do it if you just go to equilibria.com, and then from there there's a PDI, which we call Personality Diversity Indicator. So equilibria.com, and then discover your e-colours on there. You can do the 35 questions, take about 15 minutes, and then you'll get your top 2 e-colours complimentary on us with a little bit of information about yourselves, and we're more than happy to share that. Emma has just put something in the chat box there with the so anyone who wants to click that link in the chat box, you can go direct to their website and complete that 15-minute questionnaire. And then from there, you can upgrade to a basic or indeed that premium report. And for me, the premium report is valuable beyond belief.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. There are a couple of questions. So Nuala asked, what is the best way to introduce e-colours to a team and to help teams get deeper understanding of the way they individually and as a team see and react to risk?
Well, I think first and foremost, it comes from the leadership, right? The leaders must understand that the benefits of understanding their people and be prepared to use everything in a very ethical way. You know, I think I've pushed that, you know, that's really important to us. You know, but if the leadership are prepared to have a look at it, I introduced it to a company at Heathrow Airport a couple of years ago, and now every single one of their team, 500 staff, They are all doing their e-colours, and all the new starters are coming in. And just getting a self-awareness, a half-day session. I've had people give testimonials like, "You've changed my life," right? But I also had a woman say to me, "No one's ever cared about me this much to train me to this level." So it's about introducing it slowly, I would say, and gently, getting buy-in from people, getting past that doubt and resistance, which is the bottom of the mountain slide that I showed earlier. Getting past that doubt and resistance, which is a natural human thing. Okay, that's fine. But if we can get past it and we can understand the ethics. So as an example, when I introduced this first to the Ministry of Defence, to Kinetic, just recently, one of the top colour blues didn't speak up in the session because he's a top colour blue and didn't want to, but he came up to me in the break and he said, "Mark, I'm so pleased that you showed the ethics slide." He said, "Because I've been on other management tools where this information has been used against people. Whereas, well, okay, so your personality style doesn't fit, so we're going to move you out of the business." That is unacceptable. And we would never, ever, ever work with any company that ever wanted to do that. So from our perspective, introduce it slowly, work with the leadership team first, and then you can scale this. And people sometimes worry about cost, you know, time and money is the big thing that people worry about. We scale this from high turnover businesses right through to leadership teams. And it's powerful. Children as young as 7 can do it, so it's powerful.
Yeah. Find that there's a different focus internationally, a different profile that people will come up with.
We can certainly analyse that from our 1.3 million people. There are cultural observations, certainly, but ultimately, we're all human beings, and we all have a percentage of these particular personality traits within us.
Okay, great. Another question: do you use the e-colours? Sorry, how do you use the e-colours to avoid conflict in a team?
So, from observations, I would suggest that it's the diagonals. If you remember the brain model that I showed, it's not exclusively, but the diagonals are where conflict can actually happen more. So red, blue, blue, red might have more conflict. Green, yellow, yellow, green might have more conflict. But certainly to reduce conflict, you start with self-awareness. Then you start with team awareness. When you suddenly realize that that person that you're interacting with is frustrating you, or there's conflict arising, but you suddenly realize that, well, they've got all these amazing strengths. Look at these strengths they bring to the team. Okay, they've got some potential limiters. And if they're willing to manage them, and as a group of people, if you're willing to manage them as individuals, all of a sudden the team and the leadership, safety improves, productivity improves when people stop having conflict. But you can only get conflict, you can only get rid of conflict once you've got some level of awareness.
Okay. Do you have people that react badly to it?
To personality diversity, not when I've explained it to them fully. And in fact, when I do come up against any doubt and resistance, it generally means that I look at myself and think, well, hang on a minute, I haven't explained this to them in the way that they need to understand it. Once I've explained it fully with the ethics and everything else, and bear in mind, I've gone at it quite quickly in this hour. There's a lot more that we can do. But you know, generally, even the most people with their arms folded at the start, doubt and resistance, going, what is this? By half a day or a full day, they're literally, they can become the greatest advocates.
Okay, so you talked in the presentation about some of the other personality indicator tools that are out there, without naming any names. How does e-colours compare with them if you're trying to make a choice between them?
Well, my personal feeling is, from all of the other ones that I've experienced, the majority of them are based directly at the leadership teams. They don't all have the ethics the way we have them. And they can be very much kind of, well, this is who you are and that's it. Whereas actually we are much more open, as in, okay, this is who you are, and actually you can improve in all areas should you decide to do so through coaching and through development. And the big thing for me is e-colours is for everyone. You know, we don't price ourselves at a level where it's like, well, it's only the leadership team can afford it. No. Because here's the thing. The majority of people that get hurt at work around safety are the people at the front line doing the work. But they are the ones that really need to know this information. So therefore, if we can educate the entire team, the whole company, from top to bottom, middle, everybody, and actually understand that that's how that person can get hurt, and that's the difference. That's what, as a health and safety person, I was attracted to e-colours, because how you can get hurt.
Yeah, that's great. I think I've come to the end of the questions on here.
Can I just show a couple of other slides? Is that all
Go
right?
for it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Thank you. So look, some closing testimonials. You know, you've changed my life. I understand everyone better now, including my colleagues, my line manager, my partner. This was the young lady I was telling you about who said, no one has ever cared about me this much to train me to this level. And I've learned from my mistake and understand how and why it happened and why it won't happen again. And that was a very, very powerful. That was from someone who caused an accident at Heathrow Airport. And for him to say how I understand how and why it happened. And I actually turned him, he's your top colour blue. I turned him into a public speaker around behavioural safety through about 9 months of coaching. And he didn't want to do it in the nicest possible way, but I just encouraged him gently and we got him, I coached him to where he needed to get to. And now he's an absolute advocate, which is fantastic. But look, closing words, it's not about comparison. We were all made different for a reason. We have these indicators within us. Be yourself, be comfortable. There is a purpose for you. And if you can, choose to be intentional with what you think, be intentional with your words, your actions, and your habits. Ultimately, they become your character, and your character becomes your legacy. And certainly, as we grow as leaders, we want to make sure that we have a positive impact on people. And for me, that's what eColours does.
Yeah, brilliant. Mark, thank you very much. It was a great webinar. Really, I learned so much. And thank you for coming and talking to us today.
I would love everyone to connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to continue the conversation. But again, I just want to say absolute gratitude. Thank you for inviting me and understanding a little bit more about personality diversity.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining.